My boss pulled me aside 3 weeks into my new job and told me my work was too good. Not in those exact words, obviously. What he actually said was that my reports were too long, and I needed to cut the fluff. But here's the thing, there was no fluff. Every single word in those reports was there for a reason. And I knew it. He just didn't bother to read them. So I did what any reasonable, totally not petty logistics coordinator would do. I gave him exactly what he asked for. And within 4 minutes, he was emailing me asking for more. If you've ever had a boss nitpick your work for no good reason, or felt like no matter what you did it was never quite right, you are going to love this. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and settle in. Because this is one of those workplace revenge stories that is so clean, so surgical, so beautifully passive-aggressive that it's going to live in your brain rent-free for a week. Let's get into it. Picture this. New job. New city, maybe. Definitely a new boss. You are 3 weeks in, still in that exhausting phase where you're trying to figure out the office culture, remember everyone's name, and prove that hiring you was not a mistake. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're just trying to do your job well. Our guy, let's call him OP, worked in logistics coordination. And if you've never been around that world, it's basically the job of making sure stuff gets from point A to point B without the whole supply chain catching fire. Shipments, carriers, vendors, delays, a lot of moving pieces, and someone has to keep track of all of them. So every week, OP submitted a report. A good report. 1 page, maybe a page and a half. Clear. Organized. Everything the relevant people needed to know. Which shipments came through, which ones got held up, why they got held up, which carriers were causing headaches. The kind of documentation that, if something ever went sideways down the line, you'd be very grateful existed. He was proud of those reports. Not in an arrogant way, just in the way you feel good when you know you did something right. And then, 3 weeks in, the manager pulled him aside. Now, there's a specific kind of dread that comes with being pulled aside by your boss when you're brand new somewhere. Your stomach does this little drop. Your brain starts flipping through every single thing you've done in the last 3 weeks, trying to figure out what you screwed up. The manager sits him down, and here's what he says. And Opie remembers this word for word, because of course he does. Your reports are good, but they're too long. Cut out the fluff. Nobody has time to read all that. Okay, let's pause here, because I need you to feel the full weight of this moment. His reports were good. The manager literally said that, but also too long. A page to a page and a half. For a weekly logistics summary. That is not long. That is not fluff. That is called documentation. Something that exists precisely because humans are fallible and memories are short, and when something goes wrong 6 months from now, you want a paper trail. But the manager didn't want to read it. So the whole thing needed to change. Opie nodded, said okay, and went back to his desk. Now here's where it gets good. Because Opie didn't go back to his desk and start slashing sentences trying to figure out what his boss considered fluff. No, he sat with the instruction. He turned it over in his head. Cut the fluff. No fluff. Keep it to the facts. Okay, fine. Facts it is. The following week, he submitted his report for week 34. Here it is in its entirety. I am not paraphrasing. This is the whole thing. Week 34, all shipments delivered. 2 delays resolved. 1 carrier changed. No outstanding issues. That's it. That was the whole report. 31 words. Every single sentence was factually accurate. Nothing in that report was a lie or an omission of hard facts. Were there nuances? Oh, absolutely. There was, for instance, a fairly heated phone call with a vendor about one of those delays. The kind of call that probably should have been documented, because if that vendor relationship blew up later, someone was going to want to know the backstory. But the manager said no fluff. And vendor drama? That felt pretty fluffy to OP. So out it went. 4 minutes. That's how long it took for the manager to email back. 4 minutes after OP submitted the most technically accurate, yet completely useless logistics report in the history of supply chain management, his manager's response landed in his inbox. Can you elaborate a little? Elaborate. Elaborate. The man who 3 weeks ago told him his reports were too long, that nobody had time to read all that, was now asking for elaboration. And here is the moment. Right here. This is where OP could have caved. Could have said, yeah, of course, sorry about that, and gone back to his normal reports and pretended the whole thing never happened. That would have been the easy, forgettable thing to do. Instead, He elaborated. He opened the report. He found the sentence, 2 delays resolved. And he changed it to, 2 delays successfully resolved. He hit send. Now you have to understand, OP works in an office. People don't just wander over to each other's desks for no reason. You email. You Slack. You handle it digitally. His manager showed up at his desk. In person. Walked all the way across the office and sat down. And they had a conversation. A 20-minute conversation. About the report. And here is my absolute favorite detail in this entire story. OP took notes. He took notes on that conversation. Notes that, as he later reflected, were longer than any single report he had ever submitted in his life. Every clarification his manager wanted, every nuance that needed to be captured, every piece of fluff that turned out to be surprise, load-bearing information that the report actually needed, written down. 20 minutes. A full page of notes or more. On a conversation that started because his boss didn't want to read a page and a half. The next week, OP went back to his original format. 1 page. Maybe a page and a half. Clear. Organized. Everything you needed to know. He didn't announce it. He didn't send a passive-aggressive note along with it. He just submitted the report. The normal one. The good one he'd been writing all along. His manager received it. Did not say a single word about the length. Has not mentioned it since. Has not asked him to elaborate on anything. The fluff complaint died quietly, the way bad feedback usually does when someone is forced to actually reckon with the consequences of their own nitpicking. Here's the thing that makes this story so satisfying. It's not just that OP won. It's how he won. He didn't argue. He didn't go over his manager's head. He didn't sulk or drag his feet or do bad work on purpose. He did exactly what was asked of him. Precisely. Literally. To the letter. And in that moment, the manager had to confront something uncomfortable. He'd been criticizing work that was actually genuinely good. Not because the work was bad, but because he wasn't doing the work of reading it. He called useful information fluff. And when that information disappeared, even for just 1 week, he felt it immediately. For minutes. That's how long it took for him to realize he'd made a mistake. That 20-minute desk conversation was basically a guided tour of every single piece of fluff he'd told OP to remove. The vendor call. The context behind the carrier change. All of it. The boss had to walk over there and essentially say, "I was wrong, I need more than this," without ever actually saying those words. Because managers rarely do. And OP just sat there, nodded, took notes, and let reality make the argument for him. That's not just malicious compliance. That's an art form. You know what this story is really about? It's about what happens when someone finally takes you at your word. We throw around feedback like it's free. Cut this, trim that, nobody reads all that, without actually thinking about what we're asking for. And sometimes the most powerful response isn't to push back. It's to just comply. Completely. And let reality make the argument for you. The fluff, it turns out, was holding the whole thing together. If this story made you want to stand up and slow clap at your desk, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Drop a comment telling me the most beautiful example of malicious compliance you've ever seen or pulled off yourself. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because we've got more stories exactly like this one, where regular people, backed into corners by bad bosses and dumb rules, find the most perfectly legal, perfectly satisfying way to make a point. I'll see you in the next one.